Does weight matter on your BMX bike? If you make your bike lighter, is it going to make you better? Is it going to make tricks easier? That's not what we're talking about in this video. We're actually going to help someone from the BMX Nerds Discord decide what he should buy to upgrade his Kink Whip to make it lighter. I'm going to say that this is going to apply for 90% of complete BMX bikes, but we're going to speak directly to the Kink Whip. I know you probably own a Kink Whip, but if you don't, you own a complete BMX bike, chances are this is going to apply. So let's get into it. My chronic meat says, good morning people. If I purchase a Kink Whip, what should I get as well to make it lighter and better for street riding? This is my first bike in 7 years, so thank you in advance for any help. Lighter and street riding don't really go together. First thing, typically when you're riding street, you're going to get a free coaster, which is heavier than a cassette. You're going to get pegs, which is heavier than no pegs. And I guess you lose some weight by taking off the brakes, but a lot of people keep the brakes on when they're starting out, when they first start riding street, okay? So those things don't really go together. But what I would recommend is like looking for different areas where you can cut weight in order to compensate for the weight that you're going to add. And with the Kink Whip in specific, the biggest thing, and I guess 90% of complete bikes, the biggest thing you can do is upgrade the tires. So there's a thing called rotational weight. And rotational weight is pretty much just the weight of something that's spinning on the bike. So wheels are rotational weight, okay? Biggest thing of rotational weight. So that's why upgrading tires, spokes, hubs, rims, anything in the wheels that have rotational weight is going to affect you a lot more. That rotational weight makes a big difference. I don't know exactly what it is. If I find a good description, I'll put it here on the screen, but all I know is rotational weight is important. So replacing the heavy kink sever tires that come on the Kink Whip is going to be great, and it's going to make your bike feel a lot better. The other thing I'd say is I'd actually just go ahead and say replace the rims and the wheels if you can afford it. Wheels are a pretty expensive upgrade. I'd say they're quite a bit more expensive than tires, but they're also rotational weight and they're worth it. Replacing the wheels is going to make the bike feel better and feel lighter. And so that's one that I would definitely look in if it's within your budget. And maybe you want to add a free coaster to the Kink Whip. This would be a perfect time to do so. New tires, new rims. The next thing I would say would be cranks. And I'm sorry that these are both, the wheels and the cranks are both very expensive things, but replacing the cranks is going to give you a good chunk of weight savings. You want to look at where you can really take out a big amount of weight, okay? So for example, a seat post, if you go from one stock seat post to a lighter seat post, you might lose 4 ounces, maybe 8 ounces if you're lucky. If you go from kink sever tires to my favorite tires, which are linked in the description, you lose like a whole pound altogether. And that's good, to shave a whole pound off the bike. If you take off your brake lever, you're losing like a few ounces, okay? And that's not very impactful. And so what we're looking for is impactful weight savings. And in the tires, that's a big one. In the wheels, that's a big one. And in the cranks, that's a big one. The 8-spline cranks that come on the Kink Whip are not going to be as good, and they're not going to be as light as some good high quality aftermarket 48-spline cranks. And so replacing them with light 48-spline cranks is going to make a huge difference for your bike. The last thing I would say would just be to remove some things and do some modifications. So for example, you can trim up your handlebars if they're too wide. Don't do it just for weight savings, but if they're too wide, cut your handlebars down a little bit. If you're not going to ride your seat post all the way up, cut it down to where you can still ride it at the comfortable height, but you don't have all that extra seat post slammed down in the seat tube. You can take off the brakes, you can take off the reflectors, you can replace the pedals. Like, those are all very small changes and upgrades, but combined together, that's going to make a pretty big difference on your bike. And so if you were to replace tires, you were to replace cranks, wheels, and then do all of those other things that I said about trimming it up, you'd easily get the bike under 25 pounds with pegs, okay? And without pegs, it'd be even lighter. But those are some things that I would do to the Kink Whip, and those are things that apply to 90% of complete BMX bikes. Personally, I think that if you do make your bike lighter, it's going to make it a lot easier to control, a lot easier to maneuver, which ultimately helps you learn tricks.